So what I decided to do was I had to get up every morning and I had to do one positive thing. Now, because I knew this layoff was coming, I'd already been thinking about making a move into home staging because my husband and I had owned rental properties and we'd merged houses. And I had learned for a very long time that if I staged a house before I sold it, I knew it sold fast and I knew I got more money out of it. And so when my husband and I combined houses, the realtor we were working with said to me, well, why aren't you doing this for a living?
Hey friends, welcome to the Business of Home Staging podcast. This is your backstage pass to business intelligence for creatives. Are you driven by your passion for design and decorating so much that you're happy to do it for free? That was me until I made 6 figures in my first year as a home stager. Yes, real estate staging is serious business with the potential for 6 or even 7 figures in revenue. Your talent is a great start, but building a profitable business requires so much more than creating beautiful spaces. Get the boost of confidence you need to monetize your talent, keep your phones ringing, and your pipelines full. Grab the popcorn as I pull back the curtains on the best-kept secrets with inspiring conversations and success stories of challenges, wins, and everything in between. I've made so many mistakes so you don't have to. If this Nigerian girl can do it, you, my friend, can do it too. Let's go.
Today, I have the beautiful and brilliant Ellen Mann joining me from British Columbia, Canada. Ellen, I called, you answered. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Ellen is the president of Chrysalis Creative Home Staging, also based in Canada, where she's joining us from. She has won multiple awards, establishing herself and her company as leaders in home staging and design. Her dedication and expertise have earned her a place as 100 most influential people in real estate staging. Ellen also serves on the board of directors of the Real Estate Staging Association. Ellen, welcome again.
So I am the president of Chrysalis Creative Home Staging. As you said, we're a very small boutique business now. We had previously had a larger company in Calgary, Alberta, which is where I came here from. But my husband and I had the busiest week we ever had. And that meant that we were driving to one house, taking everything out. We had assistants and movers and trucks, but we had the busiest week we ever had, meaning we drove to one house, took everything out, and just fortune had it that we would take it to the next house where all that stuff would fit. And we did that for 6 days in a row. And the night before that week started, there was a massive blizzard and we had about 12 inches of snow, and then the temperature plummeted to minus 30. And we decided that we didn't want to do that in minus 30 anymore. So we made a move to British Columbia, where we are now.
You mentioned that you have a boutique home staging company. That is a word that people throw around and it means different things to different people. I also consider my company a boutique company because we don't do too much and we have a niche clientele that we service. What is boutique? What does it mean to you and your business?
I think honestly, the word has been used quite often to describe very small companies, and I don't think that's an accurate representation. What a true boutique staging company to me is a company that does probably fewer projects than the large companies. However, we cater to the needs of the property in a niche way. I think the word bespoke is probably good for what I do because there is always something special that we buy or have made or do for each individual property. So it's not just a word that should mean small. It should mean that you are doing individual attention to each of the projects that you choose to take on.
Okay, so it's more like customized approach. So when we spoke in Las Vegas, you also mentioned that you have a background in change management. If I ran into you in an elevator, never heard the words before, what would be your pitch to me to understand what change management is?
So change management is very much what it sounds like. People face change in their life all the time, and we don't do it very well. So how I started was by getting certified by a company called RESA. Anybody that does change management, usually if you're looking for a job, they'll ask you if you have your RESA certification. And what that means is that you apply a set of tools to help people manage change, whether that is a change in a software program. For example, I worked in the IT department of a large corporation, and we were constantly changing software packages. And if you've ever had to have a major change in a software package for something that you use every day, you know how frustrating that can be. So my job was to give people the awareness that we're changing the program ahead of time so they could get their head around it. We worked on getting them to desire the new product because you're always advertising that it's shiny and new and great. You have to give them the knowledge to work their way through learning the new program. And then you have to give them the tools to have the ability to use the program effectively and then reinforce that. So I like to tell my clients that I often worked with a carrot and a stick. So, hey, look at this shiny new thing over here. And hey, by the way, we're unplugging your old one. It forced people to go through a valley because any large change in your life, you actually go through a grief process. So my job as a change manager was to use those tools to help people navigate change. Change management people are often used during a downsizing in a company. They can be brought in when people are experiencing grief. There are just a number of ways that a change manager can be effective, and I use those tools every day when I'm working with my clients.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, what practical tools or advice do you have for anyone who is planning career change, getting into a new business? Because those are always like big steps that people have to take. And in most cases, people have the fear of starting, the fear of change. I don't like change. Like you were talking about software, all the updates. I'm like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. This thing is working. Now I have to go learn how to use the new thing that you're giving me. I don't want that. I just want to keep going the way I'm going. So what practical tools or advice would you give to somebody that's going through maybe an unexpected change?
I would say that the first thing to do is to break any large change because you have to adapt your behavior. Break it into manageable chunks. So I can give you a really good anecdote. When we decided to move, we were moving not just one house. We owned rental homes, and our dream home, my husband and I met, we were both single parents. We met when I just built my dream house. 4 months later, I met him. And within months, we knew that we were going to be combining homes. So I sold my house, he sold his house, and we had to merge with kids in tow because I had custody of my two, he had custody of his two, and we had to combine homes. So that's a pretty massive change. Then when we decided to move to this province, another huge change in our life. And we have always chosen to break it into manageable chunks. However, we think very differently. So being in home staging, you have to have a rather creative brain. My husband, on the other hand, is extremely analytical. He is an engineer. He has an MBA. He is very practical. He loves spreadsheets. I hate them. So he had a spreadsheet made up with a 500-day plan. I can handle about 5 days. I don't want to see your tabs. I don't care about the pivot tables. Give me what we're doing for the next week, month at the most. I don't want to know what we're doing in December of next year. So for me, it meant breaking up a 500-day plan into increments that I could get my head around. And everybody knows their limits. We are all basically born with a self-control limit. There's a reason why, you decide, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to go on a diet and it's going to be great. And the first day you're super good until about 4 p.m. The other thing is I use the eat your frog first mentality. So eat your frog first is a tool that's used in change management too. A lot of people deal best with things they don't like to do. If you do them first, then your day is clear to do whatever you like working on later. So that's another tool I would say. If you're making a large change, there are things about change that you're not going to like. For example, for me, I got let go from the corporation I was working at because we went through a major downsize. So I had to embrace the fact that I had found a place in this corporation. I had risen through the ranks. I was doing change management and I knew who I was. And then all of a sudden I lost that career. And so it was tough even to get up in the morning because I didn't know what I was going to do, who I was, how I was going to manage. And I had to embrace the fact that I needed to take a positive step forward every day. Now, I knew that this downsize was coming and I knew that I was at risk because of the age group that I was in, but I'd been through 6 or 7 layoffs before. And whether you know it's coming or not, when they tell you you're redundant, we don't need you anymore, bye, it's really a kick to your ego. And so I had to apply all the tools that I'd been using at work every day on myself. And it's not even easy when you know all of these tools to apply them. So what I decided to do was I had to get up every morning and I had to do one positive thing. Now, because I knew this layoff was coming, I'd already been thinking about making a move into home staging because my husband and I had owned rental properties and we'd merged houses. And I had learned for a very long time that if I staged a house before I sold it, I knew it sold fast and I knew I got more money out of it. And so when my husband and I combined houses, the realtor we were working with said to me, well, why aren't you doing this for a living? And I said, well, I have a real job. And then all of a sudden I didn't have that real job, but that was in the back of my mind the whole time that I knew this downsize was coming. So I made the decision that that's what I wanted to do. And so my husband sat me down and said, but they're looking for change managers at this other company to work contract. And I started to cry and I went, I don't want to do it anymore. So he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to stage houses. So I made a commitment at that time that I was going to get up every day and I was going to do something to further my business. Went and hired website designed. I offered to stage a room in a friend's house and I would go and do that and hire a photographer to come in and do professional photos. And on a bad day, that meant that I watched some HD TV show or painted a picture. Small steps are still steps forward. And I made that commitment to myself. And it took me a little while to get my training under my belt and to realize that, you don't just put a sign out saying, oh, hey, I stage houses and realtors just fall into your lap. That isn't kind of how this works. Realizing that it does take a lot of those little steps forward to get anywhere and experimenting and getting your name out there and figuring out how you're going to get clients is a really big deal. So understanding that you actually have to do work to get business development, I think is another thing that I would suggest to people. Networking is a huge, huge deal in this industry. And you better get your head around talking to strangers and telling them what you do and selling yourself.
A few things I picked up from all the things you just said. One, when you were going through that change and somebody had said to you, even before you went through the change, like, why don't you do this for a living, meaning home staging? And you were like, I have a real job. Was there a time when you felt like home staging, you didn't know enough about it and it just didn't feel like it's something that could sustain you or bring in money? That's what it sounded like to me. Am I correct to think that?
Yes, I would say that that's true. I didn't realize at the time, even though I had a very weird addiction to the MLS, the whole time that I was working at this corporate job, as soon as the MLS was available online, every day, I would go out and get lunch. I would come back and sit at my desk and scroll listings. I recognized that the pretty houses were going to sell. I got very good at knowing what I would change in those listings to get a house to sell. I mean, let's face it, I'm old enough that I remember when you were supposed to bake cookies. So I didn't realize that it could be a sustainable full-time career. And when she put that bug in my ear, I thought, well, she is older than I am, and she had had an absolutely great career in real estate. And I started really thinking about it. And so the first step was doing a Google search on getting home staging training. And I stumbled across the website for the Real Estate Staging Association. So that was the first thing. Was I started going, well, if there's an association, they must know the best training. And so I found out that they actually vet training providers. And so the first thing I did was to join RESA and learn what I didn't know, I suppose. And then I went and got my training. I got let go in September, and I was in training by November. So it was a quick transition for me. But I will say, getting your mind around the transition and actually getting to a point where you can feed your family is not a matter of weeks, because your clients don't just fall out of the sky.
This is, a common misconception. Like, people just don't know what it entails to become a home stager. Like, you just don't set up shop. You had to go get training, even with all your background in change management at Chevron and doing all the things that you've done leading up to this. Home staging is typically a second career, or even a late in life career for most people. And they typically bring some kind of expertise from wherever they're coming from. A lot of people just don't even recognize how what you've been doing can impact what you're going to do. Someone was consulting with me recently, and I think she was a school teacher. And she was like, well, I don't know anything about this. I'm just apprehensive. Well, let's think about this. You managed little people, and you got them from one grade to graduate to another grade to another grade. You've done this for so many years. And so if we just even think about whatever it is we're bringing is always valuable in entrepreneurship and in business. So you brought all of your experience in change management, and I like that you were able to break things down into chunks using the tools that you have and making sure that you're progressing, doing something every day that goes towards your growth. Because we hear all the time to like, I don't have business. But what are you doing every day to get you closer to getting more business? They say, build it and they will come. But we know that's not happening, right? Only in the field of dreams. So one thing that, in the home staging business is we plan for anything and everything. And then we plan for all those plans to not go according to plan. So when you find yourself on a day when you have projects and things are just not going according to plan, I'm sure you have plenty of stories. But give me an insight where that happened and how you pivoted, and because of the plans that you've made, how did that help you bounce back easier?
So I was working with a realtor who did a lot of listings in a couple of towns that were satellite towns to the city I was in, and a city called Airdrie, just north of Calgary. And I would get all the way out to Airdrie, gone over absolutely everything in my toolkit. I've got all the furniture that I need to move into the house packed. And I can't tell you how many times I forgot a bed skirt or a steamer. Thank God for Walmart, because it was less expensive for me to go buy another steamer than it was to drive all the way back. Your toolkit can be something as simple as laminating a list of stuff that you need in most of the stages. So I ended up laminating this list, and we had it on the back of our warehouse door. So before I left the warehouse, it would be, boy, okay, is the bed skirt in? And we also started packaging our bedding into 3mm thick clear contractor bags from Home Depot. Best thing we ever did, because I would grab 2 bags, which had 4 pillows, 2 Europe pillows, a bed skirt, the blanket that we use for a bottom sheet, and then a duvet with the cover. And those are in 2 bags, and I just grab them and go. And I knew that I had everything, but that was after buying 6 or 7 steamers. The other thing is I always travel in my car with an extra, because even when you're going in and doing an occupied house, a lot of times people don't have a bed skirt on the bed. So I kind of travel with that, and I travel with a 12 pack of white pillowcases. Everywhere I go, there is white pillowcases in my car because, you can tell people that you want white pillowcases or white bedding on their bed, and lots of times you come in and they haven't done that. So little tools like that just kind of make it easier, automating anything I can automate. So giving myself options to kind of choose things on the fly has been really good for me. And we're quite successful at it. I mean, we show up at a house at 9 a.m. It's my husband and me, and we bring in movers, and I have one assistant who comes when I need her. She's amazing. But my husband and I can stage a house between 10 o'clock when everything's loaded into the house, and we're gone by 2. So we do a pretty efficient job at what we do, and we've learned the tools that work for us. You don't have to model yourself after someone else if it doesn't fit your brain.
I love that you said that at the end, because you have found tools that work for you because you have worked it, and now you know exactly how your brain is wired and what you need to do to get yourself on track.
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of grab and goes. We have we have a kit for everything.
Yeah.
So we have a bathroom kit that just has 2 towels, 2 hand towels, so you don't ever forget those kind of things. You have your shower curtain in there. So you just go, how many bathrooms am I making? Grab and go. And then we have one that's like 2 sinks, 1 sink. So you have 1 soap or whatever, and you just have what you need because you're just building efficiencies into your business, right? And so I love that you've recognized what that is. And the thing to say about discovering that too is you have to do. Because I see people come online to ask questions. What do you do with this? How do you do with that? It's all fine to gather all that information, but until you actually put it to use and start working it, you're not going to discover what works best for you. You're just going to be adopting somebody else's, method of doing things. It may well work, but if you give yourself the opportunity to extract it out of yourself, you'll be so much more organic and so much easier to follow, right?
One of the things that I find new stagers do too is that they are defensive of their position that, well, I can't do that because won't it look exactly the same in every house? Well, no. So the perfect day for a stager is going to a house, removing absolutely everything, driving to the next house, putting it all in and making it look different. And I had a stager who I just love her. She was in a master class with me recently. And she said, well, I can't because it's all going to look exactly cookie cutter. And I went, no. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll send you some photos of, I'm taking a house out and I'm putting it in another one. I'll send you pictures from both and you'll see that it doesn't because you use the bedroom art in the living room. You use the living room art in the dining room. You move things around and each house has its own personality. So even though you're using the same basics, you can make them look very, very different. Michelle Minch recently was talking actually at RESA about the fact that she has one particular sofa. It's called the Parker sofa, and she has 17 of them. And I would bet you money that if you looked at her staging, even as a stager, you would not recognize that Parker sofa, they look very, very different depending upon what she brings in around that. You can have 17 ivory couches because if stuff is sitting on your shelves, it isn't making you money. You need stuff that's actually going to be used in multiple places. And I think, between Michelle Minch and Todd McAllister, my 2 amazing mentors, they taught me that piece of advice. And it's been one of the most valuable things ever.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of Michelle and a student of hers because I took the wholesale buying class, not once, but twice, just because She introduced me to Parker. I know it well. I also have in my inventory the same sofa. I have like 6 of them and they're all neutral. And to speak to your model move, the best thing you can do is not to start from the scratch. Because when you think about how you can create repeatable processes, and if you have the basics, you've carefully curated your inventory to have the basic vanilla that you can throw sprinkles on with pillows and artwork. We do that all the time. Nobody can tell the difference. In fact, my agents say, like, no 2 houses look the same that you've ever done, but we're using exactly the same sofa. So our creativity goes beyond just making spaces beautiful. You have to also be creative in the way you put your stuff, your inventory to use. And anything that I'm bringing into my company, the cost per use is going to be worth it for me. And we have sofas from like 6 years ago that I finally just got sick of them. They've been good. They are workhorses. They've done like, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of houses. But I'm like, okay, I'm just sick of looking at this sofa. So if you carefully do that from the beginning, all these things that will serve you for years and they're like fully paid. So even if I put them in a house for free, I have already made all the money that I need to make out of it. On top of that, I was able to sell them, not at the end of their lives, because we do vacant stages. So they're really not used, but they're just versatile and they're classic. And those are going to be your workhorses.
I sold a sofa yesterday because I'm starting to trend out of gray. I ended up selling it yesterday to a woman who was so delighted with this thing and I couldn't stand it. I didn't want to ever use it again. And she was so happy and it was just a win-win that I went and delivered it to her and she was delighted. Todd McAllister, I met him on Facebook before I ever met him in real life. And we had talked quite a few times, just sort of private chats. And my stepdaughter was going to school just south of Portland. And so I had sent him a note and said, I know you're super busy. And I was just a baby stager at the time. And I said, I know you're super busy, but I'm going to be driving through Portland. I'd love to grab a coffee if you have any time. And he said, come to the warehouse. Wow. So my husband and I went. And my husband is my business partner. And as I said, he's very analytical. And Todd's business partner is Ryan Marsh, who is also extremely analytical. So we walked in the door and Ryan and my husband went one way discussing racking and, all of that. And Todd and I, the 2 magpies, took off looking at all the pretty inventory. But the coolest thing about that story is that they were actually downsizing the size of their warehouse significantly because Ryan had run the numbers and realized that they were actually a better run business and more profitable if they were doing fewer stages, but a certain kind of stage. And I remember walking through with Todd and I was overwhelmed by the amount of stuff. And oh my God, I just wanted to get my hands on everything they had because they had 13,000 square feet of warehouse. And so he had, a section of red and purple and orange and green and yellow and blue and all of this stuff. And I was just, my God, I thought it was just the greatest thing. But as we're walking through, he's pointing at the whole shelf of red decor going, don't do this. And then don't do that at the purple one and don't do that at the blue. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, you are going to buy silver, gold, white, ivory, black, and wood.
Yep.
Went, why? And he said, because a whole shelf full of red decor, if it's sitting on the shelf, is wasting money. It's costing you money. And I said, well, what do you mean? How's it costing me money? And he said, because you're paying for the storage of all of this stuff. And then he turned to me and he said, we've decided that we're going to have our staging style is going to be rustic glam. And I looked at him and I said, rustic glam, what does that mean? And he said, it means that if a table falls off the truck, all it does is add to the character. And I went, okay, I have to be very strategic about the things I buy. And he said, and the other thing is you need inventory that all works together because eventually you use all your favorite things that you love using over and over. And at the end of the day, you're going to get another stage, and you better be able to put things together and make that stage shine as well. So learning that you buy large pieces in neutral colors and you mix and match, and you get a knack for tying things together in ways that people who don't have a design aisle say they don't know how to put those things together, but you need to have that skill set. So that was a really interesting thing for me to learn from those two as well, was that everything I own better work together, because I have to be able to put together the next stage.
That's kind of how I approach my inventory. And I would say that I learned a lot from Todd McAllister as well, because when I attended the wholesale buying class, I got three for one. It was Ryan Mash, Todd McAllister, and Michelle Minch.
Yeah.
And one of the things I remember walking away that Todd told me is, my wood products, dining table, do not buy anything that has any smooth finish. Because you said, if it falls off the truck, it adds to the character. It's just like real wood, just buff it up and keep going. So that stuck with me, and everything I buy now, and I'm embracing the rustic design as well, because they're just enduring. They're more organic, and learning that neuro aesthetic thing that we learned at RESACon made me realize the more I want to use more organic, natural materials, buying in pairs, because you can smoosh two cabinets together. I learned that from him as well. Instead of buying little pieces that don't work together, I've created kind of like a capsule. The same way you have your capsule wardrobe, my warehouse is a capsule of everything has to be able to work together, or we're not buying it. So those are the ways that you can save money, that you can improve your profit, that you can be more efficient. So we both know that staging is less about designing and decorating, but more about marketing for real estate. So how do you balance creativity with the practical marketing when you stage?
Our job is to sell the fixed assets in the house. So our job is to draw the eye toward things that a buyer is buying. So recognizing what your end goal is. Last week, right before RESACon, we staged a house that had a very modern kitchen that had been completely renovated, and their bathroom also with navy blue cabinets with the beautiful brushed gold finishes and gorgeous countertop. And all of this is in the kitchen that led into a living room that hasn't been touched since the 70s. So you realize that, okay, well, I have to make these things work. And how am I going to tie these to juxtaposition of style? And so you put on your creative hat and you go, okay, I'm going to lean into a bit of mid-century modern feel. And that's going to tie these two things together. At the end of the day, we got 35 showings, 8 offers, and $65,000 over list on a house that the living room has, 1970s wood walls, wood ceiling, and wood floors. And somebody fell madly in love with that. So keeping in mind what the end goal is, and then using your creativity to tie things together, is a big part of it. Another thing is that I love a challenge. So in that same house, the homeowner had said to me, can you bring a single bed? And I said, no, I don't have single beds in my inventory. I just choose not to do that. I have queen beds. Trust me, this room will handle a queen bed. She didn't believe me. And she said, you're going to have to use a double tops. And what did I do? I used a queen bed. I got 2 bedside tables, 2 lamps, a queen, a bench into a room that she thought would only handle a single bed. So understanding that using, round, smaller scale side tables in there still gives you the opportunity to have a bed that could be used as a guest room. I love to show people that, you can use this space speaking of, Michelle mentioned her wisdom again. She told me once, she said, you can be a mediocre stager and a good business person, and you will blow the pants off somebody that is the best stager in the world that has 0 business sense. And so bringing project management into what we do every day, I think it has been a real boost for me. And I would love to see young stagers coming into the business, and by young, I mean new stagers. It has nothing to do with age, because as you said, just like with the, politicians, we actually can come into this business at an age where most people are slowing down, and we can kick butt by using your business acumen. But I would like to see stagers move away from talking about making things pretty and start using business language. I don't want to read on one more stager's bio that they spent their entire childhood rearranging their Barbie furniture, or they had the best organized bedroom in the world. And oh my God, my bedroom was so pretty. I don't want to hear that. When you're trying to gain the business of a developer or a builder, people who are in a business role, telling them about your Barbie house does you zero favors. We need to start using language about the return on investment. We are project managers. Think about it. We work with multiple clients every day. We have to set expectations. We have to deliver on timelines. We are working with not only our realtors and our homeowners, but we're working with movers, furniture vendors, and photographers all day long. Even though Barbie is a fantastic movie, I think everybody should watch it. However, stop talking about your fetish for pink. Have to start to talk about this as a business to get the respect of business people.
Amen. No, seriously, this was my next question to you. How do we, what advice would you give someone in the creative business how to think more like an entrepreneur? Because anybody can go make a house pretty. I was talking to someone that was starting new, and she started with this story of how she used to enjoy rearranging. I'm like, stop, let's go again. Think about what it is that you do that people want to pay money for. Why should they pay you? Because anyone can tell this story, and I've heard it over and over again. If you have established a business, you need to start talking the business language, because your target market, real estate agents, they don't care about all those stories. They want to see, how can you make my listing sell faster for more money? Show me your expertise. Sell me yourself. What is your worth? What is your value? And those are the things that are lacking sometimes. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, because it's not just going to be my voice. It's going to be conversations like this from people who understand the business of things. Tanya and I were talking last week. I interviewed Tanya, and she was saying that, just because you want to stay, you have the talent and you like decorating, doesn't mean you have to be a business owner. It's not for everyone. You can actually go work for a home staging company. Like, you can do the training and then you can offer your service as an employee on somebody else's team. So I have to ask you a fun question. If you were a piece of furniture or decor, what would that be and why?
Boy, I have to say that I'd want to be the bed in a primary bedroom. And the reason for that is because there are layers that have to come in to make that bed the star of the show. The primary bedroom is the one room in the house where a piece of furniture becomes the focal point. So having layers and applying softness, and you can change the look of the whole space by changing just the pillows on the bed again. And I think, the primary bedroom is where you go for your serenity and your break away from the rest of the world. So for me, I think it would be that.
I love that answer. The layers, the serenity. Well, Ellen, this has been so much fun. I have enjoyed talking to you, and I loved seeing you at RESA. It was so good to get to know you better, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
I will look forward to that as well. And I'm brokenhearted that I only have 4 months left on the board. I've really, really loved having a leadership position at RESA, and I'm really glad that you've stepped up to lead that charge. I think that this board is going to be terrific.
Thank you again, my friend, for joining me and for agreeing to do this with me.
You've been listening to the Business of Homestaging podcast. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. For more business resources, or if you need help getting started in the world of homestaging business or any business for that matter, or you're looking for growth strategies, reach out to me on thebusinessofhomestaging.com so we can create a roadmap to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Thank you for joining me on this episode and keep doing all the things. Until next time.